Hey everybody, this is my first impressions of playing Outriders on GeForce Now. Big thank you to Nvidia for providing me with a review copy of the game. They gave me a copy on Steam. I have not installed it. I've only played it on GeForce Now. And I want to kind of talk about this game in two parts. The first part is going to be me talking about playing the game on GeForce Now, and then the second part will be talking about the game in general. The game looks gorgeous on GeForce Now. Obviously, it's 1080p because that is what GeForce Now is capped at currently, but it looks real good. It's incredibly smooth. I'm playing at everything is on Ultra, and it runs really, really well. I do have to point out that I did receive Founders. My Founders account is provided by Nvidia, but they're not, seeing this video ahead of time or anything. So they're not. This is not an ad. They're not paying me to say any of this. The game runs incredibly well on GeForce Now, and if you are somebody who is a traditional PC player and you're looking for a way to maybe take your games onto a different screen, this is definitely an option. If you're looking for a way to play games that maybe your computer can't run, this is definitely a solid option. Now, I've only played on GeForce Now, so I don't know how the game looks on other platforms. I haven't tried it on other platforms, but it looks gorgeous on GeForce Now, and I'm very, very impressed with it. Now I want to talk about the game itself. I found this game to be incredibly frustrating for a couple of reasons. First off, the story is fantastic. Very interesting characters, and the world that you are inhabiting is very interesting. I'm intrigued about what's happening next. I'm not going to go into any details about the story because I don't want to spoil anything. But whatever is happening to the people in this game, I kind of want to watch a movie about it. You know, I think that it's incredibly captivating what's happening, which is pretty great for a looter shooter. A lot of times the story is very secondary for a looter shooter, and I feel like this particular game is nailing the story aspect. However, it's a little heavy-handed at the very beginning with cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. I feel like I didn't get to actually get my hands on on combat for almost 45 minutes into the game. Like, sure, there was a time when I was at like a shooting range for a couple of minutes, and yeah, I got to like run around and shoot a couple of guys just to practice. But that was like a 30-second or 1 minute interlude between 45 minutes of cutscene after cutscene after cutscene, which I get that they're trying to set up what's happening in the game. And like I said, what's happening in the game is compelling, but I would like a little more crunch berries in my Captain Crunch, if that makes sense. I want to get to the gameplay myself, and it always frustrates me when a game takes the gameplay and forces it to take a back seat, especially when it's the kind of game where the gameplay should be king. You know what I mean? Like, this is a looter shooter. I wouldn't expect so much cutscene in there, but that's okay. Once you get past that stuff, I'm sure that the cutscenes start to peter out. But like I said, I'm still fairly early on. Now, speaking of being fairly early on, I really struggled with my first side quest in this game. That's the footage that I'm showing you because I don't want to spoil any of the big stuff because it's an interesting story. But I've got this first side quest where I ran into this soldier. She's wounded, and she was like, "That guy's a jerk, and he screwed me up. Go get him." I was like, okay, I'm going to go get him. And I had to fight my way to him, which really wasn't all that bad. And then I had to fight the guy. And the game interrupts you for a well, interrupts you, no pun intended. The game kind of interrupts you with a little tutorial, and it's like, you sometimes have to interrupt cast bars, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh my God, this is such a cool mechanic to have in a looter shooter where, you know, the enemy is casting and I have abilities that can interrupt that cast that the enemy is doing, which if done properly can make the fight a whole lot easier. And that's exactly what happens in this particular scene where I am fighting against this guy and he has the ability to summon essentially a fire tornado. And I have two abilities that I can use to interrupt that cast so that he doesn't get the fire tornado to chase me around the room and burn me to a crisp. In addition to this guy having the ability to summon a fire tornado, he also has a slew of enemies at his beck and call that I need to deal with before I can deal with him, because they, like, no matter where you go in this room, they have a place to flank you, which is fine. But I felt like it was just a difficulty ramp up was just too quick and too fast. And because it was so quick and so fast, I was getting incredibly frustrated. I had to fight this guy, I'm not sure how many times. It was at least 20 times. At least 20 times this guy killed me. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm bad at the game. Maybe it's because I was supposed to be playing in multiplayer and I couldn't. I'm not sure. Like, I tried to queue up for multiplayer and it just kept coming back and saying, I'm sorry, no, like, you couldn't queue up for a random group or anything. And like, there's people in our community Discord server that are saying that the Outriders servers have taken a bank holiday again, because the servers have had a problem for the past 2 days. And honestly, that's not a big deal. I know that there's going to be people who are super upset that the servers are down. But whenever you have a game that has a pretty large amount of hype around it, and it's an online focused game, then it's like there's a lot of people who are playing this all at once. And then you take into account the fact that this is free for anybody who's on Game Pass. That means that the number of people who are trying this game for the first time yesterday and today are really, really high. So I fully expect that the servers are going to be fine eventually. But is that the reason that I had such a tough time fighting this guy? Is it because that this fight was designed for me to be with a team of people? Or was it because this fight was too hard for somebody of my low skill level? I'm not sure, but I felt like this game threw too much at me too fast. Not because they didn't teach me how to play, but this particular fight feels like something that you would deal with later on in a game. I would almost compare it, and you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was just having a bad day. I'm not sure, but I would almost compare it to like Dark Souls, when you when you played Dark Souls 3, and the first time that you get to, I think his name is like the Red Knight, the first time that you fight him, that's when you're like, oh, okay, I'm not ready for this. And I feel like I was not ready for this fight. Like, they didn't give me enough time to really get a handle on what my abilities were in order to do better against this particular target, if that makes sense. Now let's talk about my abilities. There's some really cool things going on with Outriders that I think is compelling and very, very interesting. Number one, I already talked about the story is fantastic so far. Number two, you have 4 different classes, and each class has a whole host of abilities. Now, from my limited interaction with the game, those abilities, it seems like you can only have 3 abilities at a time, which is great because you have a list of like 9 or so abilities to choose from, and that means you get to pick and choose which abilities to bring with you, which I always love it when it gives me player choice, because that means that there is a risk reward system. These are the abilities that I want to take for this particular fight. These are the abilities that I want to take for that particular fight. That is really compelling gameplay. And then in addition to having that, each class, and I was playing a very defensive class, each class also has like a tech tree that you can go through and further specialize how you're going to play that particular character, which is really, really cool. I love that kind of thing in a game like this, a multiplayer focused game, because you can say, all right, we're going up against this kind of fight, and before we start the fight, why don't you make sure that you bring this, make sure that you have an interrupt, and I'll make sure that I have, I don't know, a different kind of ability. You're going to be in charge of interrupting. I'm going to be in charge of doing other things. Like typically in, say, like an MMO, a tank in the game, they're primarily, their job is to hold the attention of the enemy, and at the same time probably often interrupt the enemy so that their big hits don't come through. And the other players in the dungeon or whatever, they have jobs as well. And go like sitting down with your team before you go into combat and saying, I'm going to take these abilities. Why don't you take these abilities, which will support us? Which tree did you go down? So-and-so. Oh, you went down the support tree. Awesome. Can you also bring this kind of ability? Great. You're going to be a sniper. That means I should probably use a shotgun. Like all of that, like preparatory stuff. Is that a word? Preparatory? I think so. All of that preparatory stuff feels like something that you would do in this game and feels really, really interesting. Unfortunately, as I was unable to get a multiplayer match together, I didn't get to try any of that out. But I feel like this game has a lot of potential to be incredibly fun. And I hope, what I'm really hoping is that my frustration stems from the fact that I couldn't find a multiplayer team to play with, and I was doing multiplayer content solo. That's what I'm hoping, because this fight was incredibly frustrating. I wanted to shout out expletives from time to time, and it was enough to make me rethink whether or not I wanted to play this game anymore, because it was so hard. But overall, the presentation of this game is fantastic. The gunplay is really, really good. There's a lot of recoil on the guns when you're fighting. The abilities are very intriguing. Like my tank guy had the ability to like cover himself in rocks. I also had like an earthquake wave ability that went out in front of me. And I had a third ability, which I would hit and like I would break into a bunch of stones floating from behind. And then I could pick a target and have all of those stones attack that spot. It was really cool. And I'm very interested in what the other abilities are like. I almost worry that there's going to be like a grass is greener kind of feel going for me when I see like a pyromancer doing their crazy stuff. I might look at that and be like, oh my God, that's crazy. I want to play as one of those guys, which is a design that it shows off really good design. The gunplay where you are hiding behind cover and popping out and shooting guys feels very much like Gears of War, which I think that moment-to-moment gameplay is really, really good. Like I said, I hope that my frustration is only stemmed from the fact that I did it wrong. and it turns out that maybe I was supposed to be in multiplayer for that particular fight, in which case, yay me for beating this guy anyway. But I'm not sure if that's the case. Like, it would have been nice, if that is the case, it would have been nice for them to say, hey, this is a player that is best tuned for a group. Maybe you want to come back later when you've got somebody to play with. That would have made a lot of sense. But like I said, the servers have been having trouble, and I haven't been able to play the multiplayer aspect of the game. So maybe we'll do another look when I get my hands on the multiplayer aspect of the game. Anyway, thank you again to Nvidia for the review copy. If you have been playing Outriders and you want to let me know what you think of the game in the comment section down below, that would be awesome. I will see you all next time. Until then, stay awesome. Bye-bye, everybody.